Whips in the Dungeon Travel Edition. The excitement never ends around here. As most of you know, in the last year or so, I've been on a two-handed whip journey. In the process of going on a two-handed whip journey, I've had to acquire match sets of almost every class of whip. For those of you that have followed me, you also know that because I have some arm injuries, I throw a Galley Whip as a warm-up whip. The Galley Whip's just a short whip, usually like 18 to 20 inches long, and it'll have tassels. And there's several whip makers that make these, but this Galley Whip that I've been throwing for years, I picked up at Southeast Leatherfest from Maker. If you go on FetLife and you look for _maker_, you will find this whip maker. Bill made me this whip many years ago, and I've thrown it every scene for probably the last 15-16 years of my journey. Well, I need two of these, and I didn't want to buy a matched set, so I took measurements, weighed it, sent photos of it to Maker, and I said, would you make me a sister whip? So it's not a match set, but we're going to call it a sister whip. So Maker agreed to make me one, because that's what Maker does. 16 plat Galley Whip. We had this trip coming up to Phoenix, and the whip wasn't done in time. So Maker actually shipped it to Phoenix so I would have it for my workshops. And that's what we're unboxing, is the sister whip. It went all the way from South Carolina to Phoenix so that I could have it for this afternoon's workshop. I'm going to be doing an advanced workshop this afternoon for their whippers and floggers group. And then tomorrow evening, Monday evening, I'm going to do a beginner's workshop for their normal Monday night education group. So this is the sister whip. Now, realize these whips were not made side by side, and they're about 15 years apart, okay? So the whip maker's journey's changed, as well as the whip thrower's journey's changed. So the main thing that I'm looking for in a sister whip, in throwing them two-handed, isn't that they're identical. These are not identical whips, but I wanted that for a Galley Whip for warm-up, I wanted them to be the same length, okay? And they're a little bit different, but they're very close. Okay, so the thong, this thong has a heavier shot load in it. I don't even have to throw it to tell you. You can just tell, putting it side by side, the bore or the gauge of the whip, of the thong, is thicker than the original. So this is going to have a lighter shot load. It'll have a lighter finish. This one's going to have a heavier shot load, and it will have a heavier finish. You can see with the pineapple knot, this one is a little bit thicker, so this shot bag extends down the thong a little more. This is a lighter profile, but that's not a bad thing. When you think about throwing these two-handed, you're going to have variations and sensations as you do a warm-up. Now, it does look like I might have to trim very slightly, because one thong's a little bit shorter and the tails are just ever so slightly shorter on one. But I'm not going to do that. If I trim the tails on the old one so that it's exactly the same length as the new one, you can't put that back on once you've trimmed it. So I'm actually going to leave it on, play with it a while, see how I like it. The tails on the new whip are wider, so that's going to give a different sensation. Even without throwing this, we can predict the new Galley Whip is going to be slightly thuddier and finish with a heavier impact than my old Galley Whip. But we'll get some feedback from Moodstone as I do these two-handed, And I give you a little two-handed here while I'm sitting down. I do these two-handed. This is a really, really sweet whip, and I'm very much looking forward to throwing it. As always, thanks for watching the travel edition of Whips in the Dungeon.